Directors, California Welfare Directors Association, and the Service Employees International Union. One thing that might be interesting to some folks, because I know you have discussed title protection, is that CWDA and SEIU are typical opponents for that measure. So it's good to work with them this year and try to build and strengthen that relationship as we look towards a title protection fight next year. And for anybody who doesn't know what that means, that just means that you cannot use the title of social worker unless you have a social work degree. But tonight I'm going to talk about workforce and bringing more social workers into the workforce. Next slide. So I just wanted to set the political context. You don't have to read everything on the slide, but generally what it talks about is that this is really a great year for social work. Everybody is talking about it in the Capitol, it seems. We have acknowledged that we have a big shortage of social workers, and we have a big shortage of behavioral health workers. So social workers in all areas are really in high demand. And the governor every year introduces his budget in January. And in his budget, he had money in there for social work. We did meet with him in November, or we met with his staffers, and we talked about social work, and we thought that he needed to invest in that workforce. So hopefully that's why it was in the budget. But he had $210 million for social work training, which includes stipends and scholarships for social work students. $40 million to support job entry and career advancement for entry-level workers in health and human services. He had a $60 million investment for multilingual job applicants, and part of that money was specifically set aside for social workers. And it's also to expand scholarships and loan repayment. And proposal to increase the number of students who enroll in education, social work, and STEM majors. So he also was looking at schools, increasing the schools of social work. And so this really supports our efforts to diversify the workforce. And I don't think I need to tell you, but we know that we really do need social workers who reflect the population of California. And it's, we need to bring people into higher education. It's a challenge financially, and it requires a lot of support. Next slide. So basically, I think I've alluded to this. The problem is that there's an increasing demand for MS level professionals in very many different workforces, but a lack of supply. And that's because too few social workers are coming through the education system, and too few MSWs are graduating each year. And schools of social work do not have the capacity to add additional cohorts of students. And so we actually have been talking to schools of social work, and we have found that they have so many qualified applications, and the number of slots that they have open is just a fraction of the people out there who want to be social workers. And so, or to, go that extra step and get their master's. And so it's really, and I think that discourages people, and they might move on to a different profession. And we really need them in social work. The community needs them in social work. Next slide. So the solution would be to increase the number of masters of social work students to meet the growing demand for social workers who support children, youth, families, and adults through various state-funded programs. I might want to add here that our proposal mirrors the governor's proposal in many ways, but his budget proposal was light on specifics. And so hopefully what we are proposing will be what's eventually adopted. But hopefully what we're proposing is additional money on top of what the governor has already proposed. Next slide. So, like I said, this would increase the number of masters of social workers. And one thing it does is it would convene a task force to develop and implement a plan for expanding masters of social work capacity. There would be specified people on this task force, including a member of NASW, county welfare directors, Service Employees International Union, some of the people that are the sponsors, and they would be responsible for developing that plan. And that plan could include things like, besides expanding slots, it could perhaps have more advanced standing programs so that people who have their undergraduate degree in social work could get their master's in a year, because only certain schools have that. It would also establish a grant program to support students, schools, and organizations and agencies. So this would be for nonprofits. So it could result in stipends for internships at nonprofits, and also agencies like child welfare, adult protective services, etc. And it also could be used to make sure that there is that MSW supervisor that you need in order for your, have a placement there. And then this is kind of tangentially, it is a hard word to say, related, but it has a follow-up study to a bill that was passed a number of years ago, SB 2030. And what this bill did is it was a workload study for child welfare services. So how many cases could a social worker have and provide the services that those clients deserve? Because as we know, many times people are overworked, and it's in order to work at your highest capacity, you have to have a reasonable caseload. And that needs to be updated, especially since there have been a lot of new mandates that the legislature has put on child welfare workers, and we have to come up with a reasonable caseload. Next slide. The next slide, this is what I said, but it puts the dollars on it. So $1 million for the task force. And then, and I should have mentioned too, that the capacity is focused on CSU and UC systems at this point. And the reason for that is because the state supports those systems, and the state is the one that's responsible for their budget. 118 million would be distributed in certain ways. 30 million per year to the schools of social work to immediately expand the number of MSW students in public schools of social work. So we wanted to have the task force for long range planning, but we also wanted to get money out the door quickly. So part of the proposal is to get money out the door quickly. And then I already talked about money to community-based nonprofits and county agencies. That's 15 million, and 13 million in educational stipends to MSW students from underrepresented communities to increase that workforce. And then lastly, $1 million for that study that I talked about child welfare caseload. Next slide. So advocates' role. So I think I'm going to take a step back, and I'll tell you first what we're doing in Sacramento. So in Sacramento, I'm working with our partners. We submitted our proposal to the budget committees of the state Senate and the state assembly. I've been calling into hearings and pushing our proposal. I don't think I put a slide on this. I'm trying to remember, but just so you know, there are a lot of other proposals out there. I don't want to say they're competing proposals because everybody's trying to help social work. What's different about this proposal is it's not only focused on one thing. There's one proposal out there which we'll also support, but it's really just geared towards behavioral health. And our proposal, the thought behind it is that we're increasing the pipeline of MSWs that could work in a variety of settings. So that's how ours is different. And so there will be another meeting in April where the budget subcommittee will hear this proposal. And at the end, people can call in with testimony. They usually only give you about a minute or two. But if we could get members of 23 Strong to call in, express your support for the proposal, and perhaps tell a story about the challenges that you have faced trying to get your education, whether that was financial or maybe you had to reapply to programs, even though you were well qualified, but they didn't have room for you. Or perhaps you because they didn't have room for you in a school that was close to where you lived, you had to, go further away. So any kind of story you could give that would really illustrate why this workforce proposal is needed would be really helpful. So one of the best ways to support a budget proposal is to call into hearings, because the budget committee really has more power on the budget. everybody votes on the budget, every state assembly member and state senator. But when the budget is going through the legislature, it's one big, huge bill with a million proposals. So, in order to really target the correct people to make sure it gets in that big proposal, are people on the budget committee. Next slide. So, I did want to talk about letter writing, but let's pause here. And I think there might have been some questions in the chat. I was trying to not look at the chat and focus on what I was doing here. So I'll go there. I don't know if anybody else wanted to facilitate the chat.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, go
okay,
ahead.
okay, so the questions in the chat,
Mhm.
the first one is a double question. It's from a social justice lens, why does NASW justify and perpetuate unpaid internships,
Mhm.
which put social work students at the bottom of the social hierarchy? Unpaid internships are a form of apartheid and an extension of white supremacy. And why is there a widespread opinion among social work professionals and professors that unpaid interns are not a vulnerable, exploited, marginalized, and victimized community?
Okay, wow. So, I mean, I completely agree with you. I think that internships should be paid. I don't think that NESW we don't have a position. We've never had a position that said we think internships should be unpaid. We are in the process of figuring out how to get the money to have those internships paid right now. I think in the past, and I don't think Glenn is on this line, right? Glenn had told me in the past it was much more common that the university had the funds to pay for internships. I don't really know the history of that or how that fell apart. I don't think Glenn does either. Because we actually talked about this a number of years ago. So that's what we're doing this year. We're trying to find the money. We're trying to have the state budget help to provide stipends for students through internships. So this proposal can do some of that. It's not going to take care of the problem in every internship in 1 year, but I think we're starting to build that. So it's definitely something I agree that, I mean, I have interns all the time and I see the challenges they face. I don't know how you guys do it. I don't know how you're in school, supporting your families, oftentimes having another job and doing your internship. It's a pretty challenging, I mean, it's incredibly challenging. So we do, that's what the purpose of starting this advocacy is all about.
So, but this
Mhm.
system has been going on for decades, right? So NASW is saying, you as a representative of NASW is saying that we are starting to do something right now.
Uh-huh.
How do you justify this culture? How do you justify this widespread culture where most professors, most social work professionals don't see anything wrong with this system of unpaid internships?
Mhm.
Are you saying that NASW has nothing to do with perpetuating that?
I mean, I don't see that. I mean, we probably should have paid attention to it before. We probably should have had advocacy efforts on it before, but it's never something that we promoted or we encouraged. We're not part of the university system.
So
Um,
no, as a NASW
right.
entity
Uh-huh.
who represents social workers,
Hmm.
do you care about future social workers?
Absolutely. That's why we're doing this.
Then you should care about the interns.
I do. That's why we're doing this.
Then doing this now something. But why isn't there an interns bill of rights if you care about interns?
Well, then we should put one together. I mean, we are very open to any kind of proposals.
Do you
And
know that interns have no rights? Do you know that interns don't have the same rights as worker rights?
so what you're doing right now is actually you're advocating, and that's awesome. So what I would suggest is if you have thoughts about an intern's bill of rights, contact us. The only person, I've been at NASW for 12 years. The only person that has ever started this conversation with me before this year was Glenn. Glenn and I had a conversation about this 4 or 5 years ago, and now, this is something that there's some momentum behind it. But, NASW is a sum of its members. And so to have, what you're doing right now is advocacy. Intern Bill of Rights is a great idea. If it's something that you think we should do, bring it on, share it. You're on mute if you're trying to say something else, but
I don't expect anything to change. I mean, if things have been going on for decades, I will contact. Who should I contact?
well, contact me. Contact me. I'll put my I'll put my email in the chat.
Okay, the next question is, how are we going to make sure receive funding to take care of the older adult population?
How are we going to make sure that we receive funding for the older adult population? So we work on a variety of budget issues, and there's a lot of there are different programs. There's adult protective services to protect adults there. There are programs, to feed and nutrition. There's SSI, SSP grants. So there are a variety of programs that we're involved in. I've been very involved with the SSI SSP coalition for a number of years to increase grants. We were part of what we did last year is we made sure that the Golden State stimulus actually went to people on SSI SSP. When it was first written, it was not going to that population, but we advocated for money to go to that population. So when you think of what goes on in Sacramento, I think a lot of times people, know about bills, but the state budget is really important because it is what we fund. And so my work is divided between bill work, but a lot of what I do is budget work and trying to make sure that we're providing funding for a variety of communities that are in need, children, seniors, disabled people with disabilities. There are many populations that we advocate for through the state budget.
The next question is, does the proposal address loan forgiveness for social work students? Is there room to add that in the future?
There is loan forgiveness, not so much in this proposal, but in other proposals that I'm actively working on and supporting. And we are co-sponsors of. So it's confusing because there's so many workforce proposals out there. This is one of the ones that I am putting the most energy into, but the other one I'm putting a lot of energy into does have a loan repayment component.
The next question is, does this budget proposal include funding to increase scholarship opportunities for MSW students, similar to HRSA scholarship for disadvantaged students to work in underserved communities, providing?
There is scholarship money. So there are, like I said, there are a lot of different proposals, and a lot of them have a slightly different community. So there are some that are focused on getting social workers to work in federally qualified health centers. There are some that are focused at nonprofit communities or nonprofit organizations. There are some that are focused on working in a mental health area in certain disadvantaged communities. So there are a variety of proposals out there that are geared towards that we're all working on, because we have this proposal. There's going to be another mega proposal that they're trying to combine into one proposal. And so, yes.
Okay. Will the proposal address the high cost being a reason why some undergrads don't apply? Students end up paying more for the MSW program itself over what they'll end up making as an MSW graduate professional.
Yeah, I think that the scholarships kind of pay down the cost. I know that a number of years ago that there were, I don't know if Christine remembers this, and this actually predates my time at NASW, but I know that the master's programs, that they don't all cost the same. I think that's true. I remember, are they all the same at Berkeley? Yeah, you don't know. I mean, that they kind of tried to make it so that professions where people were going to make more, that they cost more. And so they they did that. I know it's still too much money. I mean, absolutely. But there was effort to do that. And they did change that a number of years ago. But the main way this would bring down the cost of education is through scholarships.
I'm going to throw my own just in
Okay,
between these real
sure.
quick. I know that at CSUN, the
Yeah.
online ones are almost double what the
Mhm.
in-person is. And I guess that's due to flexibility. Somebody said it's also because it's partly privatized. I don't know exactly. On some of my cohorts that I do my internship are from the online one, which
Mhm.
really made them upset right now during COVID because so many of us were stuck with online.
Mhm.
You know, and so they can do theirs that's it's recorded as well as they can do it, you know, like personally on the computer with the person. But it does seem to be very unfair because they're working and going to, you know, class, but they are paying almost double. I do know that to be true,
Mhm.
you know.
Yeah. So yeah, that doesn't make any sense at all. But what is your question? Or is
It's
there
just,
just a
yeah,
statement?
yeah.
Yeah.
As far as the prices, that doesn't seem, you know, we're going for the same degree,
Hmm.
and it's, you know, it does seem to be kind of, you know, ridiculous.
So
But
I mean, that's a good point. And I mean, that perhaps could be a conversation with the task force. So thank you for that, because we will have an NASW representative on the task force, and that could be something that is brought up in that conversation.
okay, the next question is, will this money be used to expand the Title 9E? I think it is. Oh, I don't know, IV E programs. And if so, is there an estimate of how many students this will allow to enter those programs?
I think Title 4E, is that what you're
Oh,
talking about? I
4E,
think,
4E.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
sorry.
That's okay. Title 4E, no, it's not a part of that. That's federal money, and so that's not part of this proposal.
We're still currently paying UCs for credit hours to do our internships. Why are we paying to work?
I am not familiar with those programs. I don't know if somebody could provide more information about that, but that's not something that I'm familiar with. Sorry.
Hi, sorry, this was my question.
Hmm.
Essentially, to graduate, at least at UC Berkeley, like 4 of your credit hours for the year are for your internship, like for your MSW internship, right? So not only are we unpaid, we are also paying the university for 4 credit hours per
Hmm.
semester,
Oh, yeah.
which one credit is about $1,800.
Hmm.
Is there any advocacy kind of around that? Like we're already not making money and we're paying because we have
Right.
to.
Right. Not that I know of, but I do think that's something that should take up with the university. I mean, that's advocacy that you could do on the ground, and start there. I mean, I would, absolutely, recommend that you advocate where you see a deficiency, because, that's part of being a social worker. Like I said at the beginning, that's why it's exciting to be a social worker. We really encourage that. And so if you want to do something like that, I would approach the administration and see what they have to say.
No, totally. And we're doing that.
Mhm.
I just wonder if part of your advocacy, right, is like trying to put more money into social work,
Mhm.
like maybe, maybe giving more money to UCs so they don't have to charge students for their unpaid
Right, right.
internships
Oh,
could
no, I
be
mean, yeah,
a bigger advocacy effort. Because
right.
like, UC Berkeley is one case, but across the board, like, you
Hmm.
know, we're all paying 8 grand a year to do unpaid required internships if you
Right.
sit down and do the math.
Right. So yeah, I mean, part of this proposal is to give more money to the UCs and the CSUs for the social work programs. The task force will talk about the best way to do that and, take some of these issues that you're talking about. So you just, brought up something right now. Megan brought up another problem. And so I think those are all good things to um, share with us when hopefully we have this task force is established and we have a seat at the table. So this is something that we could bring up, and that's something that you can always share what you want talked about and what problems you want solved. Because you guys are on the ground, you know what's going on, and so if you could share that with us, that would be fabulous. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next statement is interns are exhausted from being in school and doing unpaid work. Asking us to advocate while we are being exploited seems hypocritical.
I mean, yeah, I understand. I hear you, what you're saying about your frustration. And so, I hope that we can make this better. I hope all these workforce proposals that are coming from so many different areas, they're coming from NASW, they're coming from the governor's office, they're coming from nonprofit agencies, they're coming from mental health associations. A lot of people have proposals out right now to try to help social workers and help them with their education. So, yeah, it's tough. It's not fair, and I think that that's part of the reason there's a lot of focus on this year.
We've got, will NASW professionals, directors, like the CEO being paid $400K a year and dues reaching over 3 million be addressed? Why is the CEO being paid just as much as what the president of the US is, when some MSW professionals are getting paid 30 to 40,000 a year?
I had no idea what our CEO made. That's interesting. That is news to me. I do know that the state chapters are quite different, and especially the chapters that are in states that are not California. The pay is actually fairly low. But no, that is a good thing to look at. There was a second part to that question. I thought it was the CEO salary, and what was the other part, Megan?
Okay, professional directors and much as the president of the years. Yeah, it was
It was just that. It was just that.
Yeah.
So no, that's you're here is what what people are doing in this meeting is you're advocating for the things that you see as being wrong. And so that is a concern that I encourage you to share with the board of directors of our national organization at NASW. So take it, find out when you advocate, you need to find out who are the decision makers and who do you need to talk to about that. And so that kind of issue would be the board of directors of our national organization.
Is NASW working towards mandating CSU and UC schools to utilize a CRT lens to teach social work? CRT is a vital and factual lens to understand the systems we are working in.
So are we working to not at this time. I know some universities use that lens more than others. That would be something that I think would be a topic for the California Association of Deans and Directors, or CalSWEC, or CSWE. Those are the kinds of things that are to be taken up there. It's not really a legislative thing, because in general, in social work, we don't want the legislature to dictate our education. We want to be in charge of our own social work education. And so we have always purposely kept that out of state law. So to advocate for those kinds of things, those would be the correct pressure points.
They're asking if the NASW is working towards it, is working towards mandating it.
Well, I guess, you mean with those organizations?
Yeah.
It hasn't been something that we've done, but like I said, it's, always good to bring things to our attention. And, Deborah, who is the executive director of NASW, she is the one who attends the meetings like the deans and directors and CalSWEC. So I have to say that I don't have as much knowledge about what their conversations are about. And if that is even a topic of discussion, for all I know it is, but I'm just not privy to that. So that's something I could ask her and see if that is part of the conversation.
Some programs at the public level are around 12K for advanced standing, whereas private universities range and may start at 25K.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it was more of a statement. Then USC charges about 120K. That doesn't make sense regardless of being a private school.
Mm-hmm. I
Then-
mean, yeah, it's a huge amount of money. There's no question about it. But of course, USC doesn't get state funding.
yeah,
UC and CSU does.
and then someone else just said, not all individuals that apply to scholarships end up receiving them. We still end up with the loans and debt. And that's the end of where we were.
Right. So, I mean, I sense a lot of frustration. I don't blame you for that frustration. I mean, it's expensive. It's hard to get a social work degree. I've been at NASW for 12 years now, and there's never been so much discussion at the state level of how to get more people into the profession and how to support them. So, that is, I mean, to me, that's really exciting. It's a good time. We're trying to do whatever we can with the budget committees and the legislature. Although some of the other issues that you talked about today, I think are really important, but there are different decision makers. Not everything is, done at the state legislative level. Some things are done university-wise, some things are done with the board of directors. And so it's really important to figure out who those people are for the issue that you care about.
Awesome. Oh, I think we have another comment, Megan.
Yes, we do.
Hmm.
As a first gen low income former foster youth navigating the UC system while also having no familial support and being told not to work while doing a full-time grad program is reinforcing oppression. It seems counterintuitive to make a person dedicate 24 hours per week at internships with no stipend. Additionally, there exists a huge scarcity of SWs in the field, and it's mostly due to financing degrees. We need financial support.
Thank you for that statement. And, I agree, it is very challenging. And so, that's why we're trying to make something happen this year. But yeah, I mean, it's tough what you're doing, but I'm glad that you are in social work school. I'm glad you're trying to enter the profession because you have the type of lived experience that's going to make a great social worker.
Awesome. Any further questions before we move on? Okay.
I want to add that I'm
Mhm.
lucky enough to be at an internship this semester
Mhm.
that the person in charge of my internship at Project Rebound, she
Mhm.
insists, she worked, she got a grant and she insists that her internships make something. I mean, I only get paid for 10 hours of my internship for the week, but she wouldn't take interns unless she could give them something for some of their time at least, because she believes that we're people that are already going to give our time, and she doesn't believe in like abusing people that way. And that's what she feels that it would do with people that are already going to give their time. So we have the ability once we get out there to be those type of people that if we're at organizations to help write those grants and make sure that we don't carry that history with us, to make a new legacy for interns coming in, not that it'll be easy, but I watched how hard she fought for us, and I don't know what the answer is. And I really liked what Lindsay said. I didn't think about the fact that for my AAs and for now, I've been paying for me to not get paid for my previous internships,
Mhm.
you know?
Yeah. Thanks for sharing. And thank you for helping with the chat, Megan. I'm not very good at reading the chat and trying to speak at the same time. It's a hard thing to do. So
Awesome.
I don't know if you want to provide a transition into the second part of it, Nicole, or you want me to do that?
Yes, I'll start sharing.
Okay. So I know there was a question about writing letters or contacting your legislator. And I mean, these are just a few points some of you probably have heard before. I'll let it load up. Here you go. Be concise. One page is the best. I mean, legislators are very busy. And so if you really want them to read your letter, have it be a page. I know a lot of times people stress over how to address the letter. I wouldn't worry about that too much, but I usually just, say senator or assembly member and their last name, or you could do the honorable first or last, but don't worry about it too much. Just, I think that getting letter from constituents and people that are out there, they're not expecting them to be, in business format or whatever. I think just a letter from your heart is really important. But if you're writing about a bill, make sure you have the bill number and the author is nice. And if you're writing on a budget proposal, try to find out what the name of that proposal is. And ours is called the Workforce Development Bill Capacity for Masters of Social Work. And then if you are a voter in their district, if you're a constituent, let them know that, and also tell a personal story. That's the best way to get your point across. But also don't, I would always be, respectful in tone, and that you are trying to, you just want to share your experiences and advocate for your issue. And then also thank them at the end. And the next slide is a little bit repetitive, but it's a little bit more about how to structure a letter. So, first paragraph is the greeting, request for specific action like voting on a certain bill or supporting a budget proposal. Briefly describe the proposal you're talking about. You don't have to go into great detail, but just a brief description, and then why you support. And that would probably be where a personal story could go. And that could be, a personal story about your own life, or it could be a personal story about clients you've worked with. So it could be something that you have seen in your internships, for example. Ask them how they plan to vote and thank them, and sign your letter and include your address so they know if you're a constituent. But more and more nowadays people write emails instead of letters, and that's a little easier because it's not as formal. But it really is the same kind of, way you would structure what you're saying would be the same. But the biggest takeaway, I think, is if you have any kind of personal story or a firsthand account of somebody else's issues, that is always a good thing to share. So I think that's it for what I have to say in there, unless there's questions or if anybody had anything else to add on this section. Okay. Okay, well,
I have a question, Rebecca.
sure, Nicole.
Any tips for folks who are like, for me, for example, like I kind of get a little bit scared sending an email or a letter to my representatives. Any
Right.
tips, or like what would you recommend to like kind of remove those nerves of like sending a letter to our reps?
Oh, you cut out a little bit.
Oh, can you
Say
hear
the
me?
last part of what you said again, because you got a little choppy.
Oh yeah, like what are one ways for us to like calm our nerves whenever we want to like send a message to our reps?
I mean, I think just knowing that I don't think they're expecting perfection. I think that you need to know that this isn't an assignment that they're going to grade you on. I think just speaking from the heart is important, and taking that pressure off yourself, that it does have to be perfect. But, just getting your point across and knowing that that's enough. I mean, that's enough. I don't think it has to be perfect. They don't expect that.
Thank you. Any other folks have any questions?
Yeah, if you know that you want to write, let's say you're writing to someone, and it's about a specific area on a bill, like let's say you're writing to one of your congressmen, or you're writing to a state senate person, but it's regarding something about prison reform. So how would you find out who in his department? Because so frequently you write just to the email address that's on there. And I've even been told when I've gone to lobbying that, you know, they don't necessarily, know that, they don't necessarily get all those, or they, they get mixed up. So like, how would you know who in that department to write?
Right. So if you, like, for example, your state senator, and that's the office you're targeting, you can always call the district office or the capital office, because I think the district office, which is your local office, will be able to tell you, and ask them who in the office handles public safety issues, and then you might address it to the staffer. And so I think that would be one way to go. But I think you're right in that the emails that they have set up for the members of the legislature that are on their websites, I don't trust those as much as far as everything getting through. I think that even though snail mail is old-fashioned, that will arrive. But writing directly to the staffers is also a good idea.
Someone asked, do you know what the response time should be to hear back from a state representative?
That's a good question. I'm sure some offices are better than others. When I've done things, I would say it should be within a month. I would think that's the general rule.
Do you think when emailing that it's better to address it to the person that's in charge of that department, for that person, for that assembly person, or that Senate person?
So if you're writing a staffer, I would maybe address it to the staffer, but then say I wanted to, um, encourage your senator so-and-so to support this bill. So, dear Megan, I'm writing to encourage Senator so-and-so to vote for this bill. So maybe something like that.
Okay, and someone asked, how would you motivate clients such as teens to advocate for their rights?
I would, I guess the mentorship, I think, has to be involved there. And I think that you need to give them the tools in order to be able to do that. So maybe you sit down with them and help them write a letter or compose an email to a decision maker, whatever the issue is. And let's say you want to go to the Board of Supervisors to talk about the homeless in your communities, and you would take that client or that youth perhaps with you and show them how to testify and model that behavior. But I do think that that mentorship, I think, is really important.
Awesome. Any other last minute questions? Okay.
Hold on, I have one in my private one. Sorry, hold on.
Go ahead.
How much of an impact is it for us to write our representative a letter?
I think it is. I think it is impactful, especially if you're targeting your own member. I think that it is, even though I definitely have sent like form letters or whatever, it is more impactful to write a personal letter with a personal story. And if you're a constituent, I think that's gold. I think that's a really helpful thing to do.
Is it free for MSW students to join the NASW?
There is a student membership. that is about I don't, it's about
It's $60
it's $60,
as long as you're a student. It will remain $60, and then the
right?
first few years is less than it would be if you joined it after you graduate.
Right, right. That I was trying to remember what the percentage was, but I couldn't remember that, the percentage of the full membership. But um, since we've had a change in leadership and we have a new executive director, that's one thing that she has been looking at, which is to have some scholarships for people to have memberships. But and then a thing that hasn't happened at NASW, but I hope it's going to come to pass in the next few years, is that they'll, let people pay overtime instead of just having one time a year where you pay your dues, because I think
Um,
that's helpful for everybody.
and then will there be space on the task force for universities and community agencies?
That is a great question, Christine. I need to look at the specific language on that again, but I think there is. But I am happy to get back to you on that question.
Will there be space on the task force for the next group of 23 Strong, for somebody from 23 Strong to be there and bring some of these issues that,
I think there is a student representative, but I should look at that. I can email that information to you. I can send that to you and Nicole and Christine, and then you could share it with everybody.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, we're close to time. Oh, we have another
Okay.
question.
we have one more. Do you know why some MSW programs don't advertise lobby days?
I don't know. I don't know. We try to get the word out to every school. We do have participation from all the schools, though. I don't think there's one program that we don't have representation from. So I think we managed to get the word out there somehow.
Awesome. Well, thank you everybody for your wonderful questions. They're very informative for us to learn. I want to request from all of you to have your camera on because we're going to take a group picture. I'm going to count to 5. Feel free to, if you don't want to take a picture, that's totally fine, but we're going to take a group picture. So I'm going to wait. Okay. Okay, count of 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Awesome. Wait. Hold your smile. Hold your smile. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Awesome. So I want to thank Rebecca Gonzales for being here with us today, informing us of the social workforce budget proposal, and also from all of you to join us today, this evening. I know it's Thursday and you're here, and as Rebecca said, you're advocating for yourself, for the community, even for future students who want to go into the MSW field. And so I want to thank you all for being here. Before you all leave, we are going to raffle 2 Starbucks gift cards. So for those who did participate and ask questions, I'm going to spin the wheel. I'm gonna, so you all don't say we were cheating, but we're gonna spin the wheel, and then the winner, please put your private message me with your email address.
That's pretty slick. I've never seen anything like that.
Yay! Congratulations. So please get your email. If you don't get your email, we're gonna do it again. So please private message me. Okay. My computer is slow today. I'm gonna stop sharing, not share. Oh. It's not letting me. Okay. All right, so I'm gonna share again. The next winner.
Big money, big money, big money.
Okay.
Wow.
Okay. I have to do this again. Oh, we're gonna do this again. Let's give another person an opportunity, but wow, congratulations. And Christine.
Yeah. Now we know.
Do it again. Please do it for someone else. That's very sweet though. But thank you.
Okay. All right. So we're gonna do it one more time. We're being very generous today. Yay, Sonia. Is Sonia here? Okay. Can y'all put that your email in the chat box? Okay. And that will conclude our meeting. Is Sonia here, by the way? I want to see if Sonia's here.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm gonna message her now.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here today. That concludes our meeting, and have a wonderful night. Take care, everybody.